partying and stuff, and I think it's Typo were kind of like the same kind of a thing, but you see footage of like Pantera playing and Pete Steele coming out like with just a brush kind of cleaning the stage in the middle of the gig.
Oh god. Because I actually woke up at 4 o'clock this morning and threw on some more of the music and kind of fell back asleep to it.
I kind of hated it that much, Jen.
Yeah. I didn't hate it. I liked some of the songs.
But I suppose it was probably the perfect time as well, because like people were going vampire mad around that time, because like Interview with the Vampire was after coming out. Then the Interview with the Vampire books were like, I think early 80s, but it was only like when they did the movie in the 90s with it.
Everyone went absolutely fucking vampire crazy.
So there was all this stuff was kind of going, and into the gothic imagery, and it all kind of fed together.
Puffy shirts.
And then you had a load of bands that were not necessarily copying Typo Negative, but were similar, but like Moonspell and all these. So there was like this goth metal scene started happening. It's really weird to throw Paradise Lost, I think, in with Typo Negative.
But they kind of do fit, kind of that doomy kind of.
Yeah, but it's more so the image.
Yeah.
Really with it.
Yeah, you've got all your long leather jackets and your long black hair and your frilly vests and, sort of like your gothic jewellery and
like a vampire cross with the Matrix.
Yes, but like even kind of like with the songs on like October Rust, there's a real 60s vibe. Just like My Girlfriend's Girlfriend sounds like a Doors song. Yeah, I think with the
kind of the keyboardy, kind of the Hammond organ type thing.
And it's a fucking testament to kind of like with the whole kind of like fucking the way that Josh Silver plays like the keyboard. It's amazing. Like it could easily be Ray Mancuso, isn't it? That's his name. Yes, of course.
I don't know. I'll just
and then like the cover version of Cinnamon Girl. Is amazing, but like there was trouble over My Girlfriend's Girlfriend video as well, because it's him with like two women kind of like having a threesome as well, and something like at the end of it. He's
a bit of a man whore, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, that was the whole thing with the Playgirl thing. He was like, I will go and Playgirl and I will pose. And then after he did it, he was kind of told, do you realise that like only 25% of the audience is actually women? It's mainly men. And he was like, I have made a huge mistake.
There's like a lot of... go on, Jen.
I did notice that like when I was looking through the album covers and stuff, like, was green his favourite colour?
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
That's what we're saying,
Because I obviously I recognised when you were saying that the one album cover, but I didn't realise it was all of them.
Yeah, sure, he's obsessed with green.
Green is for his father.
Yeah.
Kermit the Frog.
And sure, that's the whole thing as well with Green, like that he was called the Green Man, and then there's the song on that album called The Green Man as well, which is kind of about him and his love of nature and
mad.
Well, it's just
it's cool though.
That's the simple.
Because when I was looking up Typo Negative, it was like, when you go into Google and you look up like other suggested results and stuff. Yeah. One of the things said, is Typo Negative a good blood type to have? I was like, what? And then when you like opened that up, it just started talking about the band, and it was really it was really strange. It was like, what?
The band is in my veins.
Yeah.
Definitely is a good type to have, all right.
But that album is just fucking, it's a stomper. My favourite song, Wolf Moon, I think it was used on, because a lot of their songs were used on different soundtracks over the years, and I think it might have been used for Underworld. But
the Knicker Factory in Coronation Street.
Oh, yeah. Team J. Mike Baldwin coming in. Unholy water, sanguine addiction. But so I suppose after that it kind of started going down, but like kind of like personal issues started kind of coming in.
That was their peak of success, and like they were successful still after that, but it just never reached the same heights.
World, like the albums are all great, but I suppose the whole thing with World Coming Down, it was a lot darker because there was deaths in his family.
Yeah, kind of
it was a more depressive
issues.
Kind of a thing. I think that's when he started like we were saying that they said whenever he did something, he did it to extreme. So when he started drinking, he was like he would drink and drink and drink. Yeah. And then he got into cocaine as well, and
that was a bit too Moorish, as it always is.
And they were saying that there was like I think around that time there was a part where he got like really sick when they were on tour, and they were saying that he literally fucking turned green, and they had him in a hospital.
He turned his favourite colour.
Yeah. And then like the doctors were trying to figure out what it was. Yeah. And they were like, what drugs are you on? And he's like, cocaine, fucking kind of like, drink and redheads. And then they said like a couple of days later they came back and they were kind of like, what kind of drugs are redheads? But he discharged himself from that when he can like turn jello. And so it was the weird thing with him. He got like he had genetic kind of, and as well as a result of being so tall, there would have been a lot of pressure on his heart. So I think he didn't look after himself as well as he could have. I can't think of the name, but he had like heart problems that he was diagnosed, like a murmur or something like that, which he was well aware that he had. And then when they started touring, I think it just started
slipping a bit. I suppose he's self-care.
So like a regular person, with no health conditions, abusing their bodies the way he did, probably wouldn't come out of it too well, but he probably ended up a little bit worse. Like how old was he when he passed away?
48.
That's very young, like.
Yeah. Oh, it is, yeah.
But you can see like he didn't have that kind of you see in some rock stars or kind of bands where like they've like almost this weird genetic immortality where they take all the cocaine in the world and then they get up the next day and go, I'll just have some breakfast and I'll be fine. You're like, how are you alive?
I'll have some vodka for breakfast
more cocaine. Yeah.
Vodka and cocaine, yeah.
Unfortunately, that was not the case when it comes to Pete Steele.
Yeah, but like I mean, the thing with like fucking whatchamacallit, World Coming Down, it was well received, but there was a lot like, whereas the other albums were kind of more fun and things like this, like there was like dealing with cocaine addiction, like with the first song on White Slavery as well. What you talked about, but like he ended up not at this point, but he ended up like going through kind of like drug induced psychosis as well, because like he was eating cocaine. It's like that thing kind of like in fucking Role Models with your woman, what's her, I can't think of her name,
Jane Lynch.
Yeah. She was like, I had cocaine for breakfast, cocaine for tea.
Guess what I had for dinner? It was more cocaine.
It's a great movie. You need to watch it.
Yeah.
I've not seen a lot of movies actually.
Because you're just very
something you got to check out.
Like, yeah, it's a great movie.
Who's Jane Lynch? What's this? No, need to watch Role Models.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, this is when people in his family were dying, so there was a lot of songs around death and stuff, and it wasn't as upbeat. Like Everything Dies, I think, is a great song. Like most of the songs on it are fucking great. They did a cover version of Day Tripper as well.
Yeah.
By the Beatles, obviously. I was trying to.
Who? By the Beatles, of course. Yes.
And as well, he gets into kind of like stuff about kind of like his mental health things, and like, I mean, it seems to be something that he suffered with a lot through his life. I've ever seen one interview with him, and he was saying that at one stage he was like a cutter, but he wouldn't be like just like a scratch or anything like that. So he was in this place where it was like the walls were white, and he said literally the walls would be fucking red by the time he'd finished kind of like cutting himself down there. So it seemed to be one of these, because like when he was on stage, he came across as being like this bigger than life character, but like deep down very, very shy, kind of like someone struggling with mental health issues all their life.
As is often the way. Yeah.
A lot of people kind of put themselves out there, like whether they be in a band, a musician or comedian, kind of, it is kind of like their way of putting themselves forward and, kind of exercising their demons, as it were, but unfortunately sometimes it seems like it can exacerbate it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's a mask to hide behind as well. You just put up a front and behind. Like, I mean, you have this whole like, happy-go-lucky, or like, putting on a kind of a real sort of a cheerful or a very laconic front, and then behind it's just like, nope, not all that good. Yeah.
Well, it's the thing around that time as well. There was. It's a tribute to Black Sabbath came out there. A lot of these kind of like metal albums that were tribute kind of things started coming out towards people, and kind of like compilation albums, and it's like that album for people. It's fucking amazing. Like Rob Zombie is on it. I think Therapy do Iron Man with Ozzy on it. Biohazard opened it up with a fucking great song, After and Forever, which I think there was a video. I think that was the thing. But Black Sabbath. Oh, Cathedral, one of my favourite bands, which we're talking about before. They do a cover of Solitude, which is fucking amazing. But Typo Negative do a cover of Black Sabbath, and it's better than the original.
Than the original, yeah.
It's fucking creepy as fuck, and because it's just that slowness, Pete Steele's voice, it feels evil. And the organ playing in it as well. It's just like properly fucking evil. with it. It's just amazing kind of cover version. But then, I suppose then getting into Life Is Killing Me, that one where I suppose that was a little bit more upbeat.
Even though it sounds like a very downbeat name.
Yeah. And it's, I suppose, for people who aren't very, very familiar with Type O Negative, maybe if you have a YouTube playlist, it's like I Don't Want to Be Me, it'll probably be the one that'll come up a lot on it. Where it's your man, he was in Revenge of the Nerds and a few other bits and pieces where he's basically just trying on different outfits, dressing up as things and dancing away to stuff. And the video is quite good for it. But I wouldn't put it up there with one of their best albums. It's good, it's still kind of thing, but it's just, I don't know, and there's not much kind of like talk as well around kind of like, the production of it, and then as well, I suppose this is the thing, there was like, I Like Giles was where people started kind of going,
back to the 1940s again.
Yeah, it was like, is he fucking homophobic and so forth? It was like a song taking the piss out of the whole thing about like with all the men that were throwing themselves at him
after the Playgirl thing. And as well, for people looking back, you have to put it in the context. Like, this guy grew up in the late fucking 60s, early 70s and stuff, where like homosexuality was like incredibly frowned upon, not just by like, fucking kind of like working class people or things. Like, it was a global thing where it was like, even in fucking psychiatric terms, it was seen as a mental illness. Yeah.
So it's like people grew up with those kind of like things being shoved down, and like, if you get to the age of 6, a lot of your beliefs are kind of like formed. So your idea of right and wrong. So if you're told that this is wrong all your life, it's very hard for people to kind of break out of that mold. And I don't think the guy was homophobic, because if you look at some of the fucking videos, especially the backstage videos or the tour videos, they're like all humping each other. They're fucking flicking each other's cock. There's not.
But see, I think the pervading kind of thought of the time would have been like, it's okay if you're homosexual. I just want you to know I'm not homosexual.
Yeah, it was. It was like an accepting kind of like vibe around it. People growing up in the 70s and the 80s.
Now, people would say, oh, that wasn't accepting, that was homophobic. But at the time, that was what was deemed acceptable or accepting of it.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
It's a graduating thing. I don't, like you can see it over time. Like things change. Like, even the way people talk. Like, it always reminds me. What is it? Like that. I think from the 80s or early 90s, that Eddie Murphy stand-up where he's like being incredibly homophobic and but everyone's just laughing because it was just kind of jokes that were said at the time. But now we look at it, you're like, that's just incredible.
Yeah, you're kind of like, oh my god, how are you saying that?
Well, you have to put it in context at the time, like with things. It's people aren't bad people because they believed in certain things that aren't acceptable now, because it was just like the thing at the, it's like it was the general kind of feel at the time.
Things
and like
do need to be taken in context, but unfortunately a lot of the time they're not.
No, a lot of the time people just look back on it and goes like, oh, whatever you said was wrong, and cancel it straight away. It's like,
no.
I mean, context is key for anything.
Yeah. I think what you said, Mark, is very good as well, that things graduate, that there is that gradual kind of like change, that people don't go from kind of like this is wrong to kind of like, kind of alright, totally accepting it overnight. It takes, unfortunately, it takes decades sometimes. Would have.
And I mean, as long as you weren't out there sort of like Jesus being at the absolute horrible other end of the spectrum, that that you weren't out there like causing injury and harm to people just because of your beliefs, which most people weren't. I mean, people might have, as I said, like this kind of thing, as long as you weren't out there sort of actively injuring people and all, you know what I mean? There's
this was kind of
there is a spectrum of all of this.
This was the
kind
height
of
of the in America, where like even in the army they were like, don't ask, don't tell. It was kind of like you're just like, it's not saying it's where it should be, but it was where it was at.
Yeah, it was where it's at. Like, it's a different world now.
Yeah.
Thank God, like, but kind of like, I mean, people had to move through those stages as well. But I was just saying that just because, like, I don't personally think he was a homophobic. I think he was, it was just a reflection of the times.
Kind of
like,
as well,
it's like, I don't know, you need to put things in context with it. But Life Is Killing Me wasn't a great album, and I think it was around that time when things started getting really, really bad for him. His mental health started dipping kind of like fucking massively. There was, in 2005, there was rumours of him being dead because he just disappeared for a while. Then there was a whole thing came up with his wife, or with his girlfriend at the time, where he caught her cheating with someone, and he ended up beating your man to a pulp and nearly killing him, and he ended up spending time in prison for it. And like, I mean, it was funny. There was one interview we were looking at. Well, I don't know what her name was, but they were like really annoying. I was like really kind of like